Are you pregnant and expecting your little one any day now? You want to give birth in a hospital because that seems like the sensible thing to do. Plus your husband would never agree to a home birth. That's me. But you want to try and do it naturally, aka unmedicated, no epidural, no pain medication. I got you, girl. I've done it twice. And in this video, I'm going to show you how and why you might want to consider doing an unmedicated birth in a hospital. If you're new here, my name is Julie. I run this channel all about motherhood, intentional living, minimalism, simplifying your life so that you can really enjoy the people and the things around you to the max. I'm so glad you're here. If you like this kind of content, make sure that you subscribe, give this video a big like, thumbs up, and I can't wait to see you in my future videos. Quick little backstory. I am a mom of 3. My youngest one is 3 months old. So this video is going to kind of focus on how I prepared for her birth. If you want a full birth story of how it all went down, let me know and I can make that video for you. But this video is really concentrating on why you would consider having an unmedicated hospital birth or a natural birth in a hospital, and how you can prepare yourself to set yourself up for maximum success. Because if you know anything about birth, it is unpredictable. We just don't know what's going to happen, but we can still set goals and intentions to have the birth of our dreams. So a quick disclaimer here, I am not a doctor, I'm not a midwife, I am a medical professional, I'm an occupational therapist, but I do not work in labor and birth and delivery. I'm not a doula, nothing like that. I'm only coming from my experience of a mom of 3 children that I birthed myself, but the first one I had an epidural. It was not my intention, but that's kind of what happened. And then the next 2 I had unmedicated births in hospital. So I'm going to be talking about that experience. I am someone who will always fight for a physiological birth, which basically means a natural birth. It is not something that is bad, or you are sick, or you have some kind of disease that requires a hospital. So I come from the perspective that birth is a very natural, normal part of life, and you're not sick if you're pregnant, and you're not sick if you're a birthing woman. So please keep that in mind. This is my personal bias and opinion. There is no judgment on how and why you choose to birth the way that you do. I just want to make this video to educate you. If you are curious about what it would be like to have an unmedicated birth but within a hospital setting, keep watching. Also, it should go without saying, but let's just say it anyway, always listen to your doctor, your midwife, your health professional, and always listen to your gut, your intuition, if there's something that seems a little bit off for you. Let's start off with the why. Why would you ever want to do an unmedicated birth, especially if you're going to be in a hospital? If I'm going to a hospital and I have access to pain medication and things that can make me more comfortable during labor, why would I not take them up on that? It is a more difficult route because you are going somewhere that is designed to give you pain relief and medication and to make the birth go as smoothly and predictably as possible. And that often entails an epidural where you can stay in bed, you're comfortable, you have all your faculties. When you're going through that labor experience without any medication and you're getting towards the end, it's very intense. There's just no way around it. No matter how comfortable you feel, it is going to get hairy. There are ways to make that more comfortable, so I definitely will talk about that in the video. The point being, an epidural is kind of like a win-win for everybody in terms of comfort levels and just controllability, which is what you want in a hospital. You want as little unexpectedness as possible. Coming to a hospital and not wanting an epidural is definitely a feat of the mind, because you now have to politely, or maybe not so politely, refuse the anesthesiologist who's definitely going to come in as soon as you get admitted to ask you when you want your epidural. You're going to have to say, no thank you, I don't want this. And often you're in a position where you cannot do anything, especially if you've decided before you went into labor that you don't want any medication. So the reason for me not wanting any medication, even before I had my first child, I wanted to do it as naturally as possible. But I was giantly naive about how to have a natural labor or an unmedicated labor in a hospital setting. And it didn't end up working out. I held off as long as I could. I ended up having an epidural. I ended up having some complications after that. Then after that, I was determined to not have to have an epidural if I ever had any more children. Because the problem with it for me is that A, it can slow down your labor, which is not what you want. B, it leads to other things because alongside an epidural, you need an IV, you need other medication, you need to be checked, you need a catheter, all this kind of stuff. And C, the recovery is just so much longer because you've had so much medication pumped into you. So it just takes time for all of that to get through your body, for you to get back your feeling in your legs, to just feel more normal. Contrast that to my second and third births, out having an epidural. I had no pain medication for my children, and I literally, after the birth and after everything was kind of like tied back together and cleaned up, I could have gone out for breakfast. And I always joke that I could have gone out for brunch after this because I didn't have anything in my system that was prohibiting me from walking or getting up or even breastfeeding. Like I was kind of, once I had the baby, I was kind of normal. I was back to normal. And so for me, that was a huge driver. The other thing was like, I wanted to see if I could do it. I'm just being honest. I wanted to see if I could give birth without medication because that is how we've been doing it for thousands of years throughout human evolution, millions of years. How come I wouldn't be able to do that now? Why wouldn't I be able to give birth naturally? I wanted that experience and I wanted that feeling of empowerment. It was just something that was very personal to me. So that was my why. If you're highly considering an unmedicated birth in a hospital, unmedicated birth period, but an unmedicated birth, especially in a hospital, you need a really powerful why. Why do you want to do this? Like anything that gets hard in life that's challenging, you need a really strong driver and motivation. So that's going to help you get through it. So let's talk about what you need in order to have an unmedicated hospital birth. Well, a lot of this is mental, and we're going to talk about that in the preparation, but you need an open and determined mind. Birth is just like fire. You just don't know how it's going to go. So you really do need to be at peace with the fact that it might not go the way that you want, and that's okay. You also need an educated mind. You need to know how birth works, perhaps the stages of labor. Know that when it gets really hairy, it's probably close to the end. You need to understand that birth is a natural part of humankind, and 99%, and I'm making that stat up, most people are able to birth physiologically, naturally. That is the way we've been designed. That is the way we've evolved. And your body knows what to do, and you need to trust that instinct. Practically, and especially if this is your first baby, but it could be your second or third, I would highly recommend a doula. I used to be in one of those camps where I just thought a doula was a waste of money, kind of, because they are expensive. Insurance doesn't typically cover them. Doula for me, it was like, do I really need this? I already have a doctor. Why do I need a doula? A doula is critical for the mental part. It's someone that will talk you through things, that will help you feel at ease, that will tell you when to go to the hospital. A doula will support your birth partner. You could not have a doula if you have a birth partner that feels very confident and knowledgeable about birth. But if that is not your reality, which was mine, a doula would be really helpful. I think for your first time birth, a doula is great, regardless of your birth preferences, but especially if you want to go unmedicated in a hospital, I think a doula is a really important, amazing investment. Just like selecting a doula, making sure that they are vibing with you, having the right kind of healthcare provider that is also open-minded to you trying a physiological birth in a hospital is really, really important. If this means changing providers, if this means searching for a midwife, if this means interviewing doctors before you settle on somebody, so be it. Especially for the first baby, I found myself very attached to my doctor, not wanting to switch. But honestly, my second birth, the doctor wasn't even there. Never mind my doctor, it was the on-call doctor who I'd never met before. He didn't even make it to the birth. So all I'm saying is don't become attached to the person that's going to deliver you, because really they might not even be there. There's a high likelihood they're not going to be there. It's really about the care that you receive up to that point, up to the birthing point. Those are the people that you want to kind of attach to and confide in. You want to be educated and advocating for yourself, because there is a good chance they will try and talk you out of it. They will want you to have an epidural or whatever it may be. So you want to make sure that you know what's going on, and you try and find a healthcare provider within the best of your ability that is aligned with your values and desires. Even better, if you can find a birthing center that is perhaps attached to a hospital. Sometimes they have birthing centers within hospitals, so that in the unfortunate event that you needed more intervention, you needed surgery, or you needed an epidural for some reason, you have it right there. there, and that can kind of quell your monkey mind to know that, hey, if something's wrong, I'm safe, I have all the intervention that I need, I'm not at home where I'm literally an ambulance ride away from a hospital, I'm in the hospital, but I'm in a place that is much more set up. And alongside a birthing center, something that I had wished that I had for all 3 of my births, and I think makes a huge difference, is a birthing tub. Now, at a hospital, my understanding is most of them will not allow you to actually have the baby in the bath or in the bathtub, but up until that point when you're about to push, you can spend time in the water, and I think that makes a massive difference to pain management, to being more calm, versus kind of doing it cold turkey. Warm water always makes people feel better, and I think it is really, really critical in a birthing situation. And then just as you're about to push, usually they make you get out of the water because they can't see what's going on. Fair enough. Once you get to the point of actually pushing, there's no going back. You can't have an epidural at that point, so the only way to stop the pain and discomfort is to get that baby out of there, and hopefully the water has really softened everything and allows for you to like a few pushes and that baby is out. How do you actually prepare for an unmedicated hospitalized birth? You need an open mind, and along with that, you need a visualizing mind. I spent months visualizing the type of birth that I wanted, especially for number 2 and number 3. I don't think I really had an appreciation of what it was like with number 1, and I wish I had spent more time, and that's why I think a doula would have been really helpful. But with the 2nd and 3rd pregnancies and babies, just like a marathon, you have hopefully months to prepare for them, and you need to use those months wisely. And I spent a lot of time thinking about how I was going to wake up in the middle of the night, I was going to have someone to look after my children or someone easily available, and I was going to go into labor. I was going to do majority of the laboring at home in the shower, where I felt like I was still very much in control, but you know, I knew it was go time. And then we were going to go to the hospital, and I was going to get to a situation where I was dilated enough that it was progressing. I didn't really have a number in mind, but it was enough that they were like, oh yeah, you're in active labor, they're going to admit you, and there was no turning back. Because for me, my strategy was to have as short a labor at the hospital as possible, so that there would be absolutely no doubt that I would have this baby without any medication. And in a way, it's sad because I feel like the hospitals around me do not support a physiological birth. If you go to hospital, they want you to have all the drugs and medications. There's a lot of reasons why. We don't need to go into that. I knew that I needed to advocate for myself. It also really helped my success by having baby number 2 and number 3, because by that point, they're a little bit more hands-off with you. They feel like you're more of an experienced mother. They should be like this for number 1 as well. Another thing that you can do practically on how to prepare yourself is exercises like prenatal yoga. That's been shown to help to strengthen you, to open things up. Exercise is just gonna make your mind even stronger. So if you can stay fit and healthy, something that I'm a little bit guilty of not doing enough of during a pregnancy, that's definitely gonna help your body prepare. And prenatal yoga is actually one of the exercises that have been scientifically proven. There's actual evidence to show that this will speed up your labor. So I highly recommend it. Could never go wrong with prenatal yoga. No one ever did too much prenatal yoga. You know what I mean? Because I was driving this, and because I was kind of going against the grain of wanting an unmedicated birth in a hospital, I was kind of the captain of the ship. And so I needed to prepare my husband, who was going to be my birth partner. So I said to him ahead of time, just like when I want pizza, and I know I shouldn't get pizza, I said to him, I'm going to want an epidural. I'm going to want the pizza. I'm going to want it. It's just the way it is. I want you to tell me that I can do this, and to do whatever you need to do to prevent the epidural. So what ended up happening with our 3rd birth was that he actually sent the anesthesiologist away without my knowledge. He basically said, nope, she doesn't want that. And I didn't know this. And I think that really helped, because I remember saying to him during the birth, I don't know if I can do this. Maybe I'll just have an epidural. It'll be so much easier. Obviously, you're getting very, very uncomfortable. It's painful. I'm not in my shower anymore, which was really helping me control my pain management. I'm in a hospital with lights. It's like 5 in the morning. They're sticking IVs into me and all sorts of things, and doing COVID tests, and it's not a great time. Okay, I was happy when it was done, but he supported me because he knew, and also this was our 3rd baby, so we've done this before. He knew that this is what I really wanted, and obviously the caveat for that is if things had really gone down and obviously if I needed surgery, I would have pain relief, or if something happened where the baby was stuck and they needed to put something in there and you can only do it with pain relief, okay, fine. But for the most part, we were going for the unmedicated route. And so he really supported me with that. So another piece of this puzzle was that I had a midwife who cared for me throughout my pregnancy. She had had 3 unmedicated births of her own, 2 in a hospital. And she said to me, you're going to want an epidural. You are. You know that they exist. You're going to want an epidural. But when you get to that point where you feel like you cannot go anymore, i.e. you're in transition, you're right at the end, probably transitioning from 8 to 10 centimeters dilated, you're about to push, that's when it's going to go quick. It's going to be over soon. She said 10 or 15 minutes. I think time kind of suspends itself when you're in that laboring phase. She basically said, when I'm at the point of no return, I'm so close and I can do this. And I kind of kept repeating that into my head. During my pregnancy, that's kind of a mantra that I kept in my mind. And I feel like that helped me in have the type of birth that I wanted. I watched and consumed a lot of positive birth stories. This is where your mind is so important. I did not allow myself to go down that negative route of C-section, of emergency this, of tearing, of all these things, these kind of horror stories that we hear. You need to ask yourself, how many birth stories do you hear that are positive versus negative? Usually the negative ones are the ones that we hear a lot about. The ones that are kind of just your regular birth story, you don't really hear that much about it. Anything that I consumed around birth, I tried to make it positive. I listened to a birthing podcast that I will have linked down below called Birth Matters that my friend was actually on, and she had a very successful second birthing experience. She shared that on the podcast, and I listened to that a couple of times to really channel that positive energy. So surround yourself by positive experiences, because even if in your mind you're like, you can say to yourself or rationalize this won't be your experience, your subconscious really takes that all in, and your subconscious is what's going to be taken over when you have this baby. So you really want to be programming it in a very positive way. Ultimately, I made my internal world positive, and I think this makes all the difference. I used all of these things that I've spoken about in this video to culminate in the birth, I wouldn't say of my dreams, but as close to as perfect as possible. I ended up being in labor for maybe 4 hours total from when I woke up with contractions to when I gave birth. I pushed twice. I was at the hospital for maybe 45 minutes by the time I had my baby, which is really what you want. You want it to be as short and sweet as possible if you're going the unmedicated route, at least in my opinion. I wouldn't want to prolong that. And it really just showed me that things are possible. We can do hard things. And if I can do that, man, I can do anything. Women are made to have children, and it's an empowering experience. And I want to encourage you to go for it if this is something that you want. And maybe it's not going to end up the way you want it. Like my first birth, I didn't get the birth that I wanted, but that was okay. I learned valuable information. At the end of the day, although this is cliche, we were both fine. So if you enjoyed this video, if you found it helpful, I would love to know. Please leave in the comments any questions you have about an unmedicated hospital birth or birth in general. I will try my best to answer them. Make sure you subscribe for more content all about living your best life, as cheesy as that sounds. Like this video, share it with anyone who may be about to have a baby and needs some positivity in their life versus all the horror stories that we hear around birth. And I will see you guys in my next video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. New location, new lighting, don't know what I'm doing, out of practice, jump right in.